Hey everybody, welcome back to Money Monday. The stock market just hit a record high. 11 straight days of gains, the longest winning streak since 2021. If you saw that headline, you might have thought, okay, things must be pretty good right now. Then you filled up your gas tank. Or you checked your credit card balance. Or you noticed groceries cost noticeably more than they did 2 years ago. And suddenly, that record high feels a little harder to celebrate. Here is what I want to do today. Connect the dots between all of these signals because they are not random and they are not contradictions. They are symptoms of the same underlying condition. And once you understand that condition, everything starts to make a strange, uncomfortable kind of sense. That condition is the United States debt crisis. Our debt-to-GDP ratio is now at 122%. Our national debt is larger than the entire taxable size of our economy. That is the worst ratio in nearly a century. And you know, it's quietly driving every major headline you are seeing right now. So let's trace the chain. When a government carries debt at this level, it has 4 options. Cut spending, which economists call austerity. Default on its debt. Print money, or try to grow its way out. Austerity is theoretically correct and politically impossible. Default's not really on the table. So what we're left with is a combination of printing money and hoping that printing generates enough growth to offset it. That is the current plan. Now, most people misunderstand how money printing works, so let me be precise. Money is loaned into existence. The Federal Reserve does not print bills and mail them out. It creates new money by authorizing new debt. So when the money supply grows, debt grows alongside it. The only way this doesn't spiral into inflation is if that new money flows into actual production, new goods, new services, new output. If it does, supply grows to meet demand and prices stay stable. If it does not, more dollars are left chasing the same amount of stuff. That is inflation. In 2020 and 2021, the money supply surged, but it did not flow evenly. It flowed first to entities with access to government contracts, stimulus programs, and financial markets, business owners, investors, asset holders. By the time it reached wages, prices had already risen. That is why millions of Americans got raises and still felt like they were falling behind, because in real terms they were. Now let's add oil to this picture. Oil is not just gasoline. It's fertilizer, diesel, plastics, jet fuel. Really, it's everywhere. When oil prices stay elevated, the entire supply chain gets more expensive. Groceries, commuting, shipping, airfare, all of it. In a healthy economy, that's painful but manageable. In an economy already running hot on 3 years of post-2020 inflation, it is the thing that pushes households from stressed to stretched. And we can see that in the data. Credit card debt in this country is at a record high. I want to be direct about what that means. It does not mean Americans are being reckless. It means that for a large and growing number of families, fixed monthly expenses now exceed what the paycheck covers. Debt is not a lifestyle choice in that situation. It is a survival mechanism. The IMF has put a name to what happens if this continues. Stagflation. That's economic contraction combined with persistent inflation. The last time the United States experienced this was back in the 1970s and early 1980s. Unemployment rose, wages fell behind prices, and the stock market dropped by about 50% in real terms. The Fed eventually had to raise interest rates to 18% just to break inflation's grip. It worked, but honestly, it was brutal. The Fed today faces the same impossible choice. If they cut rates to stimulate the economy, inflation stays hot. If they raise rates to fight inflation, they slow growth and make the debt load even more expensive to carry. Right now, the Fed has paused, which is, well, the Fed's way of saying it doesn't really love any of its options. So, what are the possible outcomes? In the optimistic scenario, new lending flows into productive businesses, real output grows, and the economy expands fast enough to offset inflation. Growth is broad enough to benefit working families, not just asset holders. In the pessimistic scenario, new money flows into financial markets and government bonds. Asset prices rise, wages stagnate, and the gap between asset owners and everyone else widens even further. Both outcomes share one feature. People who own assets tend to benefit. People without assets tend to bear the cost. That is not a political statement. It is really just a mechanical description of how money flows when the money supply expands. So here's what you do with this information. 4 steps. Step 1. Audit your fixed expenses right now. Know exactly where your money goes each month. If your fixed costs, housing, utilities, debt payments, groceries exceed 70% of your take-home pay, you're in a fragile position. Find one place to reduce before you are forced to. Step 2. Stop adding to high-interest debt. Credit card balances at today's rates are one of the most expensive financial choices a household can make. If you're carrying a balance, attack the highest rate debt first. Even small progress matters. Step 3. Build a cash cushion for market volatility. The market crashed 3 times in the past 2 years on tariff announcements, February, March, and April's Liberation Day. Each time the dust settled, it bounced back to record highs. Cash on the sideline is not dead money, it's optionality. Aim for 3 to 6 months of expenses in liquid savings before you invest aggressively. Step 4. Keep investing consistently, regardless of the noise. There have been 16 recessions in the last 100 years. Every single one of them ended. The investors who built wealth across those cycles were not the ones who timed the market perfectly. They were the ones who stayed in the game. If you are not yet investing, start with whatever you can. If you already are, stay the course. The debt crisis is real. The economic pressure is real. The IMF's concerns are real, and none of that determines your financial future. What determines it is whether you understand the system well enough to position yourself inside it wisely. Asset ownership matters in a debt-driven economy. Start there. Stay financially educated. That is how you build wealth. Until next time, I've been Kevin with MoneyTreeandMe, providing better security and ensuring better lives. Make it a great day.